Okay, so let's sit ourselves on our lift and come into a cross-leg position. Can't find my glasses. They're there. Hold on to your knees and just make sure that you feel evenly weighted underneath the seat bones, so that you're sitting on both seat bones with a little levelness. And again, the other day, I think it was Wednesday, I was talking about kind of rolling onto the front of the seat bone. So you sit on the perineum, you draw the perineum down into the block, so you push it down into the floor, and then that helps you to raise upwards. So press down into the floor, into the cushion or whatever you're sitting on with the perineum. So press down so that you can lift up. So it's how we make contact with the floor that really counts in how we extend. So press down in the perineum and lift up in the chest. Just look down at the floor. Spend a few moments listening to the sound of your breath. Soften your jaw, soften your tongue. Listen to the sound of the breath. Bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together. Lift and open your chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Feel that there's space in your armpits. And then gently allow your eyes to close. Listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just draw your attention into your breath. Feeling your breath filling the lungs evenly. Just very gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. And then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. Just spend a moment to acknowledge something or someone that brings you positive energy. And allow that feeling of gratitude to build around the heart area. Hold on to that feeling as you release your chin from your chest and then raise your head. Just grip around your knees or hold on to your knees, lift and open your chest, drive the spine upwards and then turn to the right side. Just feel how maybe there's resistance there that isn't normally there. Press the perineum down into the cushion and then lift up into the spine. So consciously pressing down allows you to lift up. And then come back to the center, grip around your knees, lift and open the chest, and then turn to the left. Drawing the abdomen across, the ribs across. Breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. And then come back to the center. Just sit back on your heels. And just allow your legs to just adjust into the floor. Just feel that the shin bones press down into the shin skin, just to activate the legs. So press the shins consciously into the floor, and then try and almost slide the shins away from each other, so that the legs really firm up. The thighs begin to pay attention, and then lift and open the chest, and then come forward, trying to maintain the connection between the seat bones and the heels. Spreading the palms, pressing the hands into the floor, squeezing the outer elbows inwards, wriggling into the hips, and then bring your forehead down. Breathing evenly and deeply, lengthening the armpits. Breathing evenly, deeply, listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then come up into Adho Mukha Svanasana, just pushing the hands into the floor, spreading the palms, lifting the seat bones, activating the knees, activating the thighs, just breathing with long, slow, deep, deliberate in breaths, long, slow, deep, deliberate out breaths. Feel that the backs of the legs open up. So push the fronts of the legs through to the backs of the legs, fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, turning the thighs inwards, broadening the backs of the thighs outwards. Lifting the seat bones a little higher, lifting the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs, so that the front rim of the pelvis comes into the top of the thighs. Okay, and then step forwards, come up into a standing position, and then just align the edge of your feet with the edge of the mat so that your toes are turning inwards. If you've got back problems, just come forward onto a wall or have some blocks underneath your hands for half Uttanasana. Otherwise, raise your arms up, extend your arms up towards the ceiling. Just feel how you are grounded with the floor. Feel where the feet are and lift out of the feet, lift upwards. Hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, and then hinge at the hips, come forwards and hang down. Again, just feel how today is a new feeling. And today there is new sensations to explore and to manage. Listen to the sound of the breath. As you stay, just see if you can get your elbows a little closer to the floor, but not by bouncing, by activating the legs. Are your legs activating evenly? Bring your hands to the floor and then come into half Uttanasana. If you can't reach the floor, then use blocks. So lift the chest, drive the chest forwards, turn the thighs in, broaden the backs of the thighs, lifting the front chest. Breathe in evenly and deeply. And from there, walk your hands forwards. Try and keep your heels down if you can. Walk your hands forwards, come back into dog down. And then walk the feet hip width apart. So if you can bring your heels down to the floor, then don't just drop them down to the floor. Try and edge them to the floor. I've got a pain in my foot at the moment, so I'm not bringing that down, but just see if you can bring the heels a little closer to the floor, but without dropping the legs, keeping the kneecaps tight and keeping the fronts of the thighs lifting. Breathe in evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. Okay, and then just come down onto your knees and sit back on your heels. It's just sitting on your heels and lifting and opening the chest, driving the spine upwards. Just feeling that you can lift and open the chest and then walk the hands behind you so that the hands are underneath the shoulders, not walking them back any further than that. So the hands remain underneath the shoulders. Press the palms of the hands really consciously into the floor. So you immediately, as soon as you start pushing the hands consciously into the floor, you can see the chest kind of rises up a little. So press the hands really consciously into the floor and then lift from the wrists up into the armpits. So the chest lifts and opens. So staying seated on your feet, lift and open the chest. Press the knees into the floor, and if there's no back problem, lift the tailbone off the floor, turning the tailbone in so you get a good stretch of the quads. Lift and open the chest. Keep the head where it is, just level. Lift and open the chest. And then come back down onto your seat bones. Lift and open the chest, and then come up onto the fingertips, and then just come forward, and then one more time come into Adho Mukha Virasana. And then just sit back on your heels, just to wake the body up a little. Come up into Tadasana, and I'm going to do Trikonasana just to kind of wake up the body. So lift and open the chest, drive the spine upwards. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step the feet apart. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out, and then come down and find the shin. Turn the chest to face the ceiling. Work from the feet up into the hips, up into the chest, out into the arms, up into the neck. Breathe in evenly, placing your feet to accommodate your hips if need be. So feel that you are in a straight line. Feel that the front leg hip is pushing forwards, feeling that the back leg is pushing backwards towards the wall behind you. Turning the chest, looking up. And then come back to the center. Swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. And then come down. Just breathing yourself into the pose. Feeling how the pose feels different today. Bring the top hand down onto the floor. You can bend the front knee a little. Bring the hand either side of the front foot, of that left foot, and then step back into dog down. So feel how dog down suddenly feels different, suddenly feels lighter, like you're full of air a little. How it almost holds itself. How the breath becomes freer. Keep the hands where they are, keep the feet where they are, swing the hips forwards, come up into dog up, keeping the legs away from the floor, turning the tailbone inwards, lifting the chest, driving the spine upwards, turning the crease of the elbows to face the front. And then go back up into dog down. Else is getting a bit of hay fever, maybe they're feeling a bit blocked in the sinuses. All of this stuff really helps to clear them out. And one more time, coming up into dog up. Keeping the legs straight, keeping the thighs away from the floor, drawing the lower ribs through the arms, turning the crease of the elbows to face the front, shoulders away from your ears. Breathe evenly and deeply. And then one more time back up into dog down. And then jump or step your feet forward, and then come up into Tadasana. Breathe in evenly and deeply. Okay, and then come down into the cross leg position. Just gripping or holding around the knees and lift and open the chest. So driving the chest upwards, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just breathe evenly. Maybe your sinuses feel clearer. Draw your chin down to meet your chest. Raise the chest up to meet the chin. Lift Mula Bandha. So lifting the anal sphincter up towards the diaphragm region. Just fill the lungs evenly, deeply, consciously. in both lungs evenly. Empty in both lungs evenly. And then release Mula Bandha, release Jalandhara Bandha, and then just raise your head. So we're going to go back into our into Supta Konasana with a bolster beneath our back. So if you haven't got a bolster, just roll up some blankets or whatever. You might also need a folded blanket for your head. So blankets or cushions will do the job as long as you can lift yourself up quite high. And then bring your feet into Baddha Konasana. And then guide yourself down along your bolster. So the bolster supports your back, and your back kind of almost rounds to the shape of the bolster, and then have a blanket for underneath your head. Make sure that your head isn't like this. Your chin is high. Try not to let your chin be any higher than your forehead. So pick up the neck and lengthen the back of the neck, and just feel how the bolster lifts and opens the chest. So we can do a little bit of Samavritti pranayama, which is just an even breath. So Samavritti is a method of breathing that basically that you count the breath and you hold the breath for the same amount of time that you so you got the inhalation, got the inhalative retention, you got the exhalation, and you got the exhalative retention. And so the aim is to make all of those parts of the pose equal. But we don't start just by working with retentions, we start with just observing the breath. So the first stage is just observing the in-breath and observing the out-breath. So just observe the length and the quality of the breath. Observe the openness of the chest via the bolster. Observe whether your in-breath or your out-breath is naturally longer than the other. Which of your breaths are longer? And then count your breath. Just observe the breath. Don't try and adjust it. Just try and count the breath. So count the in-breath. Maybe that lasts for a count of 4 or 5. So make the out-breath last for the same amount of time. So we begin to observe that the breath does change very subtly. So just aiming to make the in-breath even with the out-breath. Samavritti, breathing, even in-breaths and even out-breaths. Maybe after a little while you notice that you can extend the breath a little further. So maybe if you were counting in for 5 before, maybe you can count for 6. Make it even for both the in-breath and the out-breath. Okay, and then bring the breath back to a normal rhythm. Push your elbows into the floor, push yourself up into a seated position, and then just come up into cross legs. So as you stay in that Samavritti breath, maybe you start to notice that the breath becomes smoother. Maybe you notice that the breath kind of necessarily kind of calms everything down, slows everything down. So that's the first stage where we just work with the in breath and the out breath. But then we work to introduce inhalative retentions. So you work to start off with. So you breathe in for 5 or 6 or whatever you were doing, and then you hold for 1, and then you breathe out for 6, and then you breathe in for 6, hold for 1, and then breathe out for 6. So you just introduce that inhalative. Oh, here's a cat. You introduce that inhalative retention. So it's at the top of the in breath. Just hold the breath for 1, and then we start to increase it to 2, and then to 3, and then to 4, and then to 5, and then to 6, so that the inhalative retention begins to match the length of the in breath and the out breath. And then we start to introduce the exhalative retention, where you start to hold the out breath for at the end of the out breath, you hold it for 1, and then it's 6 6 6 1 6 6 6 1, and then it's 6 6 6 2, and then you build it up to everything being the same length of time. So let's go back into either you can do Supta Virasana if you prefer, because that's really good for pranayama, or Supta Baddha Konasana, and then we'll go back onto the bolster, and then we'll start to introduce, just very gently, we'll start to introduce those retentions. So just in Supta Virasana, the knees are together. You draw the backs of the calves away from the backs of the knees, and you're not sitting on your bolster. You're away from the bolster, and then you bring yourself back down onto your bolster, and then have the hands out to the side, and then go back to just the Samavritti inhalation and exhalation. Just go back to the inhalations and the exhalations for the count of 5 or 6. Because as soon as you start extending the breath, adding an extra number on top, then it almost feels as though there's a natural place for a retention, but we haven't been given it that space quite yet. So just in for 5 or 6, out for 5 or 6. Okay, and then start to introduce that retention for the count of 1. So 6, 1, 6, 6, 1, 6. So just breathe in evenly with the retention. Remember that your retention at the top of the in-breath should never be a grip. There should never be any tension within that retention. It should be gentle, just a suspension of the breath. And you can increase it to 2 as long as there is no tension within that retention. And then if 2 is comfortable, see if you can extend it to 3. So it's in for 6, hold for 3, out for 6. And then increase it to 4, as long as it remains comfortable and gentle. And then you might find that you're comfortable with 4 and you don't want to extend the inhalative retention any further than that, in which case that's fine. Or you might want to just continue to add another number until you're working with even retentions and even breaths. Just continue to work yourself towards that holding for 6 as well as breathing for 6. So with that inhalative retention, we just absorb more of the energy of the breath. So perhaps you observe the quietness of the practice. So if you're in Supta Virasana, perhaps your legs start to kind of need a bit of a stretch out. So if you're in Supta Virasana and it's starting to kind of get to the stage where you need to move your legs, just come up into dog down. Otherwise, just stay with your with your in breath and inhalative retention and your out breath. And then in a moment, when legs have recovered, we'll start to introduce exhalative retentions. So you might want to use this time to just adjust your position a little. Your legs have recovered, just come down. And then come back into Baddha Konasana. Ian, it looks like you're sitting on the bolster, and so you're not actually maybe getting the lift of the chest that you could do. So the seat bones are supposed to be on the floor. It looks like you're sitting on the bolster. It might just be the camera angle, but you know, just do whatever feels right. But traditional Supta Baddha Konasana is where you sit on the floor, but do whatever you need to kind of support your back. So just come down back into Supta Baddha Konasana. And then go back to your inhalative retentions and breaths evenly. So we're not introducing the exhalative retention yet, just go back to the breath after moving your body. So at this stage, the kind of shape of the pose is a triangle, an equilateral triangle. Okay, and then we'll start to introduce the exhalative retentions in the same way that we did for the inhalative retention. So start at 1. So just hold in the out breath. At the end of the out breath, just holding that, retaining that for the count of 1, and then 6, 6, 6, 1, 6, 6, 6, 1, and then we go to 2, and then 3. So just start with 1. and then increase it to 2. And then 3. And then continue to increase that in exhalative retention until everything is even, if that feels comfortable. If it doesn't, then just work with what does feel comfortable. Just make this your last cycle of including inhalate retentions. then just bring your breath back to a normal rhythm. And when you've settled back into your natural rhythm, just bring your knees together, just lift the seat bones off the floor a little, make a couple of fists for your hands and just sit on your fists for a moment, just to really soften out the back. And then just release the seat bones down onto the floor, push your elbows into the floor, and then lift the chest and come back up into a seated position, and then just go into just a gentle dog down. So that Samavritti pranayama becomes quite transformative for your energy. Maybe your body feels more oxygenated, more energized. Okay, come down onto your knees, sorry. Just sit back on your heels. Just move your equipment out of the way. Have a blanket for your head, and then just come down into Shavasana. So you'd be surprised by how many calories you burn from just pranayama. In that short kind of maybe 20 minutes of pranayama, about 100 calories, which is surprising for just something that feels so static. But of course, it's never really static, is it? Because we're focusing energy with our mind. So we're engaging the brain. So allow yourself to sink into the floor. Just observe how your energy perhaps has changed. Maybe your body feels like it is full of air. So just allow yourself to almost float off the floor. So Samavritti pranayama is extremely calming but extremely energizing. Giving you a feeling of lightness. And then bring your hands into the lower ribs. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, pull your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side. from top to bottom, just giving yourself a gentle massage with the spine, just observing how perhaps it feels like you've really woken your mind up, you've woken your body up. Just roll onto your side, to your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two, and then straighten out the top leg. Come up into a seated position. Just a final cross legs with your hands in Namaste. Just a final. Sorry, before you do that, hold on to the knees, lift, and open the chest. Drive your spine upwards, and then turn to the right side. Just observing how perhaps it feels different to turn that you did at the beginning. Come back to the center. Just grip around your, hold on to your left knee with the right hand and turn to the left. And then come back to the center. Just bring your hands into Namaste. A final spinal lift, lifting up into the chest. Consciously draw your breath down into the abdomen. The Samanic breath. Be conscious of the energy that you've released through your practice, through the poses, through the pranayama. Good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy. The extensions and the forward bends bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate or seek to acknowledge the positive energy that you have created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then just very gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open, and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hope you feel good and lively and a little bit more alive than you did before we started. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you.